Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. We're focusing on commercial real estate, multifamily investing, and I'm a big mindset guy, so you may hear a few of those questions, but excited. We are super excited to have Mr. Yonah Weiss. He is the Cost Segregation King. He's helped on a couple of our projects. And we're just super excited because he's a fantastic source of knowledge for cost segregation, accelerated depreciation, commercial multifamily real estate. I know a lot of you are probably joining our podcast like this because you want to learn more. You followed me enough to where you said education is so key and so important. So I wanted our very first guest to be somebody who provides tons of value to our network, tons of value to his following, tons of value to our community. And so we're excited to have Mr. Yonah Weiss.
Thank you very much, Abel. It's a pleasure to be joining you, and it's such an honor to be the first guest on the Five Talents podcast.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you very much. I saw individuals like yourself get started, and I go, man, I gotta jump on the board. I'm missing some great opportunities to make some great friends and learn through the process. So I appreciate it, man. So before we get started, to kind of jump in, I know you pretty well in the space, but maybe for someone who has, little to no knowledge, they've never really done a deal, they've never been an active general partner or owner, tell us what it is that you do and maybe your background, and then we'll kind of jump into a little bit more of the actual mechanics. But tell us about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So cost segregation sounds like a really weird thing, right? And I'm the king of it, right? So I'm like a a feudal lord or something that's the king of the cost segregation. Anyways, no, it's a great, awesome tax savings tool. We'll get into all that later on. I work for the largest national company, Madison Specs, that we do this across the country. A little bit about me. I got into real estate about 5 years ago when I just wanted to, have some more income, make some friends in the space, and really just learn about something totally new. I have a background in teaching, and it's really my passion, and that kind of shines through in whatever I do. Anyways, just how to educate people and how to, get everyone on the same boat so we can be understanding the same ideas. And real estate is just such an incredible space, an incredible asset class. I, did a little bit in commercial mortgages, a little bit in brokering and fix and flips and that kind of stuff. Now I'm just working with investors, working with real estate owners, all types of asset classes, but helping them in saving taxes. And that's really an incredible, thing to do, something that everyone loves you for, right? When you think about taxes,
no one's going to be upset with you, man. No one's going to be upset when you figure out how to save them a lot of money and make them more.
Exactly. When you do something and everyone's just like, wow, this guy, and everyone hates taxes, right? So It's just a way to help people. But more than anything, I'm involved in just educating people. Really, that's what I do. Believe it or not. Yeah. It's a business and we help people do that. And there's a fee, there's a service involved. But at the end of the day, the majority of my time is literally just educating people about this concept, this subject, because most people don't even know about it. And that's the reason why they're leaving money on the table and they may not be taking advantage of these awesome tax incentives, is simply because they're like, what? I never heard of cost segregation. Can you say that again?
When I talk to some of our new investors, one of the things that we preach over and over again is the benefits of investing in an asset class like multifamily, which we have little benefit of taking the cost segregation, accelerated depreciation, that type of thing. So most investors are like, I don't know what that is, but if you're telling me there's a way that I can have more back at the end of the year and invest faster and sooner, I'm interested in hearing more, right?
Exactly.
So before we hit that real quick, you said you were education is your background and your past. So like school for children age, college age, high school, or?
So a little bit of everything. I mean, I'm a father, 6 children. So, we have the school age from that time. But in terms of formal education, it was more like, I started literally when I was in like junior high school. I started just being like a tutor, for kids younger than me. And then, when I was in high school, I was also for, kind of elementary school age kids, like as a tutor and a teacher's assistant and that kind of stuff. So I was working with kids and as a camp counselor and all that kind of stuff, youth group involvement. So it was always an appeal. But then as time went on, I actually started teaching more like a collegiate level, not a college per se, but like it's a Jewish like college. So it's called the yeshiva, but it's pretty much the same thing, like collegiate credits for that. So I was teaching on that level, like post-college work.
That makes a lot of sense. And so one of the things that I appreciate about individuals that I partner and do business with is kind of their willingness and ability to help others along the way. I'm a big proponent for education. I'm a big proponent for learning and then implementing. And then I'm also a real estate coach, so I help new investors get into multifamily. But the way I say it is like it's like the math tutor. The math tutor gets pretty dang good at math problems and solving more difficult ones because he's helping other people learn a lot. So that it makes sense about you because a lot of your posts, a lot of your content creates a lot of value and it comes across educational. That's awesome, man. So help me educate our guests. Like, what is a cost segregation study and what is accelerated depreciation? Break that down for me.
Right. So accelerated depreciation and cost segregation, it's really just depreciation, right? It's a very advanced form of depreciation. So let's take a step back. And what's depreciation? Right, because you got to understand. Because this is when we talk about tax benefits, real estate investing. There's the equity and there's the the appreciation of it and the cash flow and the tax benefits. Once the tax benefits, it's usually like plural, but the main one is depreciation. Okay, and that is a tax deduction, a tax write-off of a property, of the value of a property when you buy it. And literally, you buy a building, you buy a property for $1 million, you actually now get to take a tax write-off of the entire value of that building. That's what depreciation is. Just happens to be, you can't do it all at once, right? You can't just take a big tax deduction at once. It's over a long period of time.
And this depreciation, when I buy a single family property or when I buy a multifamily $1 million or $10 million building, or I buy a warehouse, it's all real estate. The government gives us the ability to take depreciation. It's part of our model. I got to spend this. It's going to get depreciated over time. And what is the, why the magic of multifamily versus a single family house, for example?
There's benefit for any type of property. Like you said, the government is incentivizing anyone, doesn't matter what type of property there is. But when you look at depreciation, as we'll understand how cost segregation breaks down that depreciation and gets you more of that up front, we'll understand very clearly why certain types of assets are better for that than others. They all have depreciation and all assets can have a certain amount that's going to be accelerated. And that's what the cost segregation benefits are going to be. But I think we better understand, how that breaks down, and then we'll see retroactively why it is single family.
I'm following you, man. I'm gonna follow your lead here.
Yeah, let's take it step by step, because you understand. First, you understand depreciation. take that, integrate that. Now you can build on that, right? You want to make sure you have the foundation and you build upon the foundation, right?
I'm going to take this building and I'm going to literally write off or depreciate a piece of it over some period of time.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to take the entire building, and depreciation is we take over 27.5-year period. Okay, you take the entire amount and you divide that by 27.5. Okay, you subtract a certain amount for land. Land does not depreciate.
500,
whatever's left,
$500K, $10 million building, $500K for the land.
Whatever it is, 10%, something like that,
Yep.
right? 5%. Then the rest, the remaining amount, you're going to take this tax deduction. Okay, now, really what depreciation is, according to the tax code, it's not just one lump sum, right? And you're taking that and dividing that by 20. Actually, there are different categories and different things within a building that actually depreciate at a different rate. Okay. And so it's based on the concept that things go down in value as time goes on. That's depreciation. That's what the word means.
We're using it up.
We're using it as a useful life.
Is reducing its
Exactly.
reduction value, whatever, however you want to say it. Depreciating. Okay.
But it's really just a concept, meaning it's a borrowed term, because really your property is going up in value.
Yeah, the building's still there. Yeah, building's still there, still making money, but the government allows us in the tax code to do this.
Not only that, but that 27.5 years doesn't just start when the building is built. It starts when you buy a new building. Even if the building was built 100 years ago, your 27.5-year schedule that now you can write off that building, tax write-off, starts the day you buy the building.
Yeah.
So
building
it's
may
not
already
intrinsic.
the building may be 20 years old and I'm not taking 7.5. I bought it 2020 and I'm starting the 27.5 years from today.
Exactly. And you're starting it based on your purchase price, not an intrinsic value that, that building was, cost to build.
Okay, great. Good foundation.
Now we break it down into 4 different categories. We have the land, which doesn't depreciate at all. Then we have the structure, main structure of the building. That's really the only thing that really depreciates on a 27.5-year schedule. So main structure, that will include, the foundation and the floor, the walls, the roof, windows and doors, main electric and plumbing. Those are things that are integral to the structure of the building.
Okay.
Everything else is going to be put into 2 other categories. Those 2 other categories are personal property, which depreciates on a 5-year schedule, and land improvements, which depreciate on a 15-year schedule. Land improvements is not land, it's what's on top of the land. So if you think about like landscaping, all of that has value. The pavement and the asphalt is not the land. That actually costs money. You pave a new parking lot, that costs money to do. That's on top of the land. The fencing,
parking lot, literal curbs, asphalt, entry.
Exactly.
Then your landscaping, and then the sidewalk costs money. Every bit on top of the land that's quote unquote, undeveloped, or it's not vertical. Man, it took me a while to create this park, which I've created a park with my hands before when I was younger. And in high school, you're bringing me back. I'm like, I remember how much time it took to like literally physically build a park.
Yeah, you plant the trees, right? All that takes.
We bought the trees, planted the trees, put the rings around them. And anyways, man, this is yeah.
So all of that costs money. All of that has value. So now we're able to take that value and depreciate the value of those things on a 15-year schedule, which just means we're accelerating that depreciation to a faster rate. Yeah. Okay. Now,
otherwise, we're waiting 27.5 years. 1/27th over 27 years. We're accelerating. We're taking more depreciation sooner, faster, which is better for us. If we're only staying in the deal for 5 or 7 years, man, I want to take it today. I can't wait around for 27 years. I'm going to be out, right?
Right, exactly. You want to make sure to take advantage of the tax deductions up front as much as possible. That will increase your cash flow. Okay, the more deductions you have, the less taxes you're going to pay. And that's essentially what this is all about. Creating these extra deductions enables you to pay less tax, okay, or potentially zero income tax, and therefore have that cash flow to use to reinvest and to build that wealth, build on that income.
Yep.
So the second category we mentioned, the third or the fourth category really is the land. There's the building, the structure, the land improvements, and then there's the 5-year property, which is personal property. All this is really anything that's inside a building that's not part of the structure. So that includes furniture or appliances, okay, countertops, cabinets. Or you put in kitchen cabinets, right? The sink, the appliances, the furnishings, even carpeting or vinyl flooring. It's not part of the structure. It actually can be removed, and therefore all the value of that stuff depreciates on a 5-year schedule. Typically for multifamily building, it's around 20%. Okay. Now, when we go back to your question, what's better? Single family, multifamily, warehouse, etc. When we're looking at the entire asset, we're looking at how much of the value of the entire thing can now be allocated into these faster lives. And the process of this being done is done through an engineer. Okay, there's an engineering component to it, which is why it's not just a tax method, not just an accounting method. It's an engineering method that combines with the taxes. And that's when you need a specialized firm, a specialized engineering firm to do this, because most accountants don't do this, can't do this.
Yeah, it's that sounds painstakingly going through a lot of detail on maybe the physical property, the very architecture, the land, the value, like you're saying, and then what type of appliance or what type of cabinets or what every component, a curb, a tree, an appliance or a cabinet or a tub or a toilet or a roof, what type of building, and breaking it all down. And that's what the engineer does. And obviously not any engineer. You want an expert. If I'm going to buy a $10 million deal and I want my investors to take as much basically tax losses or avoid W-2 taxable income, I want to have the biggest write-off. And so I would go to a professional, an engineering firm or a cost segregation expert like you guys, and the engineer breaks it down.
Exactly. And that process is not really painful at all. It's a very straightforward, very quick process that being done. But what that does is, once we're able to reallocate, and define all the value of each of these assets individually, and like you said, like the asphalt and the pavement and the curbing, right? There's actually 3 or 4 or 5 different types of values for all those different things, and that needs to be identified. That's taken into account. There's a very detailed report that's created that says, here's the value. Now I'm accelerating this value to a faster rate, taking these deductions up front. So if you look at a multifamily building, like I mentioned, it's usually around 20% in that 5-year property, okay? In those personal properties, those assets. That's because there's a lot of it. When you look at your building, right, $1 million, $10 million building, 20% of that can go into the 5-year category. Whereas a single family, there's just one, there's much less carpeting, right? There's one, kitchen. There's one set of appliances, etc. That's going to be multiplied when you have a multifamily building. How many units there are, how many appliances there are. That's just spread about throughout the entire property. So there's usually less, even though we can still accelerate a certain amount in a single family property. It's typically going to be less. It's really going to be more like around 10% or so on a single family. And warehouses as well. Think about it. There's really nothing in there besides for the walls. Okay, maybe you have some shelving, maybe some decorative lighting, certain things like that. But otherwise, there's very little inside there. Some of those warehouses have an office, and some of the office, furniture, et cetera, can be of that accelerated depreciation. Otherwise, it's very little. Yeah.
So multifamily makes a lot of sense in doing so. But if I had, a crazy new single family house, or some reason I'm the $1 million buyer, I could actually still do a cost segregation study on my $1 million property, but I'm probably going to get less goodness, if you want to call it, less depreciation, less accelerated depreciation goodness than a multifamily. And same, the commercial, let's say somebody has a $10 million commercial building, they probably still want to use a cost seg study and employ this tactic. They're just going to get a little less write-off than a $10 million multifamily deal.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, a lot of other types of commercial properties have a tremendous amount of benefit as well, right? Retail or office or self-storage or anything like that. It's going to have a lot of tax benefit as well. It's just like a warehouse where you're just literally talking about bones and walls. There's not much besides the structure. So yeah, multifamily is a great asset, but there are many others that do very, very well in this.
Okay.
Like assisted living facilities are a great example of that, because you have a lot of furniture, a lot of the appliances, a lot of the equipment in each of those rooms. The beds are very expensive, et cetera.
Okay, so and thank you for helping me break down. I think this is great. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. Now, if we're going to drill in one step deeper or continue on the same path, right? You've accelerated it. Now, I know until 2023 or something, there's some bonus depreciation. Walk us through that next phase in that bonus depreciation.
Yeah, awesome. So there was a new law that was introduced a couple of years ago called the bonus depreciation, 100% bonus depreciation. What that does is it allows you to take anything that was accelerated into a faster depreciation life, a faster depreciation schedule. So that's all the 5-year personal property and the 15-year land improvements we spoke about. All of that we can now take in the first year, okay, as a deduction in year number 1. So let's just give a quick example, right? We take your $10 million building, right? You subtracted, let's say, 10% for land. That's leaving you with $9 million of depreciation. Okay, $9 million of depreciation. If we're taking 20% of that over a 5-year period, that would give you an extra, approximately $1.8 million of extra depreciation.
Right, yeah, I'm looking
in
at
the first year.
Yeah, 1.8 million. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So our straight line depreciation, let's just take a step back. Had we not done cost segregation, we just did a straight line, take everything over 27 and a half year, it would be approximately $300,000 of depreciation.
And that's 9 million divided by the old school 27.5.
Right.
That's 327K. So without, like you said, straight line, I'm buying this new deal and we're all excited and we're like looking at these returns, 16, 17% return, and we're going to crush it. And I'm like, if I did that and did it without a cost segregation study, I'm only writing off $300,000, $327,000.
Now, don't get me wrong. That's awesome to begin with, right?
So we're gonna take it. However, if we move forward in this path, we're basically writing off 6x, 6 times, which is $1.8 million off of the investment.
And what would you be your, just a round number of net operating income from a $10 million building? What would be a good return?
Let's say we're crushing a $500,000 and we're just, in this sweet spot, probably a little lower than 400 or so. But let's just say,
let's say 500,000.
Make the math easy. Let's say 500K. We're doing well.
Not bad, right? So what does that give you? That gives you, right, straight line depreciation. You'd still be paying taxes on approximately $200,000.
So
right?
500K NOI.
And you're going to subtract right off the top the straight line depreciation, 320. Right? You're still paying taxes on a remaining, about $200,000, $180,000. Right?
Yes.
Which, it's not bad. You basically knocked, just with the straight line depreciation, you already knocked off half of your income, more than half of your 60% of your income tax liability.
Okay.
However, how do you get rid of the other, 30, 40% of that is take this bonus depreciation, for example, or even just the regular cost segregation study. What would you be doing is basically taking over the 5-year period, that 1.8 million, okay, which is going to give you, approximately, and I'm just doing the math in my head right now, but approximately an extra $360,000 of depreciation. So that's already in the first 5 years going to knock off your tax liability, your income tax liability.
So it makes perfect sense, right? And I've essentially just deployed this on every one of my teams and every one of our deals that we've done. Is like, we better make sure there's cost segregation study and accelerated depreciation, but the math kind of makes sense. Let's say this so that I get it. 1.8 million bucks we've wrote off. Now that is it our choice to spread this out among years, or is it I take it equally? I have to. How does that part work?
It's your choice. Once you do the cost segregation and now you've identified how much is going to be accelerated to the 5 year, you're taking that extra, that 1.8 million in our example, and you're spreading that over on top of the regular depreciation, right? You're spreading it over the 5 year period. The bonus depreciation is a choice. That's an election. You can choose to take it all in year number one if you wanted to.
Got it.
And you can only do that once you've done the study.
Yep. If I'm in a 5 year deal, then I would say, okay, I'm going to take equal portions every year, and then bonus depreciation. I can either take it all at once in the beginning, which I think most of the time we've done that, or I can spread it out, but it's our choice, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now, one of the reasons a lot of people do take it all up front is there's a couple of reasons. Number one is you may have other investments, okay? And this is best used when you have multiple properties, because depreciation is a deduction that's used against rental property income. Right? Rental property income is considered passive income, and depreciation is used against your rental property income, your passive income. So it doesn't necessarily just apply to one property. It can actually be used, depreciation from one property can be used to offset income from all of your properties for any rental property income. So when you want to take more depreciation, because even though you've already canceled out your income tax liability from this property, you may have more from other properties.
Yeah.
That's one reason.
I love that. And on the other side, I'm a new guy, 12 years in real estate, but really 2 years in commercial real estate. So my first investments as a passive investor, I invested passively in someone else's deal, were in 2018, and I had more losses than I could take. And so my CPA said, hey, you have more depreciation that's left over. So make sure you put something in the W-2, pay yourself a little more this year, so you have more withholdings to which then offset against. As a real estate professional, I'm like, there's never been a year in my 12 years of real estate investing where my CPA said you have too much more than you can use, and you're getting some back, you're paying, and then there's more over. And I was like, everything's on the up and up here. This is the right way to do it. Should I really be taking this much loss? Am I going to get in trouble? Somebody going to audit me? All the questions go through my mind, and he's like, no, this is a good strategy.
That's a good deal.
I'm like, how come you didn't tell me this before? And he goes, well, I've never done this. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I started working. As soon as I, kind of feel that, I'm like, I probably need to choose a different expert, right? But let's just, before we dive into that, let me talk about, before you go, because I don't want to use up all your time here, and I appreciate all your time, Yonah. One step further into the passive investor. So someone's a cash investor. I'm not talking about self-directed IRAs or retirement funds, which may already be shielded from their taxes, so they may not be able to take the same benefits as a cash investor. But let's talk about that. So a cash investor gets in this deal, and there's $1.8 million of losses. And the way we do it on the GP side is, okay, they're going to have general partner ownership and limited partner ownership in a syndication. So the investor owns a piece of the limited partner piece of the pie, right? Everybody splits it up fractionally based on their investment. So if I throw in $50K versus somebody else throws in $100K, they're going to get twice as much return and losses. But how do investors kind of know, like, is this going to benefit me? Is this really going to benefit me or not? Is this CPA time? I should talk to a professional, or have you seen it enough where you're like, oh, you're gonna be able to write some stuff off just like everybody else talking about this stuff. Do you know that, insight?
Yeah. So what happens is, like you said, the limited partners, general partners, each person according to their investment is going to get not only the income proportional, but they're also going to get the losses proportional. And the losses are the depreciation, and that will show up on their K1, distribution.
They'll get a K1. Form. Anybody working with our team, they're going to get a K1. You'll get that every year. The CPA makes it easy. So that's in the bucket. You see the lines. I invested X amount and I get this much losses.
Right. Once you have that, what that does is, if you're just a passive real estate investor and you are not considered an active real estate professional, so you're going to be limited to the amount of extra depreciation. If you have anything that's a passive loss means that you go in the negative. You have more deductions than you have income. Yep. So first off, right, most likely what's going to happen is your K1 is going to show a negative balance. What that means is that you're not paying any taxes on the income that's being made from this property.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, once it's in negative, so if you're not a real estate,
which is what we want, so just make sure our listeners are following. That's a good thing. On paper, we want it negative. Go ahead.
But you're limited to how much of it you can take. If you're a passive investor and you're not considered real estate, or your spouse is not considered a real estate professional, if you're making less than $150,000 of adjusted gross income a year, then you're basically limited to just use that against any of your rental property income. So it can be used against this property, it can be used against other investments as well. Once you hit that threshold, 150,000, that's it. You're stopped there. If, however, you have less than that, then like you said, you can use some of that to offset other income as well. And that's limited to a $25,000 of how much other income you can. And it's capped at $150,000 adjusted gross income. This is a question for your accountant, obviously. Yep. But if you are, or you or your spouse are considered an active real estate professional, which means you're spending the majority of your time in real estate trade or business, whether that's owning, managing, renting, construction,
brokers, real estate
brokering,
professional brokers, loan brokers,
acquisitions,
brokers.
Exactly. Anything you're doing like that, property managing, what happens then is you can now use any of these extra losses to offset any active income from W-2 or from any other source whatsoever. So that's really huge. This is really where the main benefit comes in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And if we're, having these losses, I know this is kind of hard for you to take a swag at, right? But let's just say $10 million building, 100 doors-ish, to B and C, 1970, 1980 property. The math worked out exactly. We can write off, this $1.8 million, that type of thing. If I'm throwing in like a good 100K for this example, like what kind of losses do you typically see on a $100,000 investment down to a limited partner, on a property like that? Is that?
It's usually, it's more than your investment in the first year with the bonus depreciation.
Yeah.
Which is crazy when you think about it. Because you're making $100,000 investment to get a $100,000 tax write-off, like it's just crazy. Think about it, because you're making your income is maybe 10%, right? 8% return, whatever it is, to get back a deduction of the entire amount or something like that. It's possible. Again, it has a lot to do with how much your percentage of ownership in the deal is, has a lot to do with how much money the property's actually making, how much income there is, how much depreciation there is, and different assets have different amounts. But generally speaking, that can be quite a possibility. Which
you just don't get when you're investing in stock, bonds, any mutual funds, we just don't really get the same in residential real estate. We don't get the same in startups. We don't get the same in a lot of other things, which is, it's amazing, opportunity we have as investors. Definitely take advantage of it. So, all right. Well, Yonah, we are towards that time, my friend. Maybe give me a few, what am I looking for? How can people reach out to you? So I imagine we have a few commercial real estate investors, people learning how to do that. Maybe somebody that's been a passive investor that they want to move to a general partner team eventually. And they're like, I need to connect with Yonah and make sure that, we use him and his firm. How do they connect with you?
The best place to find me is LinkedIn.
Me? I like LinkedIn. Are you waiting for me? Sorry. I've always connected with Yonah on LinkedIn. Is that right?
It's the best place. That's exactly right. I was going to say. You won. Yeah. You can check me out there on LinkedIn. You can find me on, you can go to YonahWeiss.com. It's a great place to connect with me, follow what we're doing. Obviously, Madison Specs, that's our company, MadisonSpecs.com. And check out the Weiss Advice podcast, which you'll hopefully get a lot of value.
Podcast. So, man, you were one of the things that the podcast you started was encouraged me to get going myself, and you provided so much value, ton of just insight, education on the space. What maybe highlight for your own network and that type of thing. Why do you do all of that? Why do you give so much back and just really provide a lot of value for free, a lot of content? How come?
I mean, that's really just my philosophy. I mean, that's my business philosophy. That's my life philosophy. The more you give, the more you're going to get. And especially if you're doing it with the intention of giving and not trying to get something out of it. So that's really what it all comes down to. And believe it or not, social media is just, I found it to be the easiest way to do that, because you can, the amount of people that you can reach at once and the amount of people that you can help in just such an easy way, right? When you're engaging with other people's content and when you're helping other people through that, or through helping provide connections, or introducing people to the right people, it's incredible how much that means to people. And it's so easy, it's almost effortless in a way. I mean, yeah, sure, there's time involvement and it has to be intentional, obviously. But that being said, it's just an incredible resource, an asset.
If you're not following Yonah, I would say for social marketing, networking, commercial real estate, you're definitely missing out. So I would do that today. In addition, you do these 10-day challenges, which I think is one of the ways that I first engaged or met with you, kind of thing. And you're doing this challenge that involves other people, setting up a platform, setting up the time, effort, and energy to kind of create it. But it helps everybody that's giving of themselves, which I'm sure turns back to you as well. Maybe on the last networking nugget for everyone listening in, it's August the 10th, 2020. We can't network. We can't go to the next real estate conference, which I also met you at an event in LA, and you were all decked out. I love the outfit, but your dress, everything was legit, man. But what can you give some advice for people that we can't do that right now, man? I don't know what to do. How do I do that? How do I meet other general partners? How do I meet with other limited partners? What the heck do I do?
Yeah. I've just doubled down on this, on the social networking, on this type of thing. I started right when this happened, the pandemic and everything started going. I realized, I had to cancel a bunch of trips and cancel a bunch of conferences. I started a virtual real estate meetup, right? Where we're, meeting every week and having a guest speaker and doing some of the Zoom network room, breakout rooms and stuff like that, where you're able to really meet with people and talk with people and connect with people. I doubled down on social media, even though I was doing it a lot already to begin with, but just so much more so because I realized that's it. You're stuck. You can't go to these conferences. Obviously there are people doing these virtual conferences now as well, which is, a great idea, but go out of your way and make it happen. Be the leader, be the one that's connecting other people, right? I just jumped in and started this meetup, and it's had tremendous success, tremendous feedback. I'm getting 50 to 100 people, live on the Zoom every single week from all over the country. And, that doesn't include the people watching on Facebook Live, another, few dozen or 100 people out there. So it's incredible.
Do it. Be the leader and just get after it. And what if you're somebody like me? Like I saw you, how broad your network was and how much time, effort, and energy you put into it. And I kind of thought for a year, I don't want to do this whole podcast thing because everyone else is already doing it. Like I'm just going to be, it's going to be noisy and that's not going to have success and I'm not going to help anybody or reach anybody. What do you say somebody's in that mindset?
If you can reach one person, then it's all worth it. What about that one person that you can help? That one person that you can make a difference to? And if you're sincere and it's coming from your heart and you really are passionate and love what you're doing, then you will reach that one person. And if you reach more than that, 10 times that, 100 times that, 1,000,000 times that, whatever, like each person according to what they can do. But everyone's got to start somewhere. And if you realize that just helping that one person is enough, then you've already accomplished what the effort you've put in.
I love that mindset. It reminds me of that old story, the child and the starfish. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
It's like the whole beach full of starfish and he's throwing them back. He's like, I got to save them. Why are you doing that? You can't save them all. I can actually help maybe just that one. And, it's an impact. You can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And if we all kind of contribute there, it's going to have a positive impact on the world. So awesome. Hey, man, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your time. Sincerely, genuinely appreciate it. And if anybody has anything else for Yonah, you know where to connect with him. I appreciate it. This has been a Five Talents podcast. Our very first one, Mr. Yonah Weiss. So excited to have him. Hopefully this is valuable to you guys. And again, my name is Abel Pacheco with 5 Talents Commercial Real Estate. You can follow us on our website, 5tcre.com, and look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you, Yonah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who follow their dreams and achieve massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us your favorite guest. Give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast.